Yeah. Hi, it's Christy. I seem to be doing more videos anyway, so I will dispense with my usual. I didn't think I'd be doing this. Apparently, I think I'll be doing this. So, some things I wanted to bring out. First, this is, again, still mostly for some key few people who really have unlocked my own personal resonance. So, kind of the initial mother kickoff actually is Jillian of Lune Innate on YouTube that I was watching when I went to the sanctuary. Then Hillary Metz, who really just turned on that kind of first big switch for me of my spiritual awakening. It took me a while to realize it. And then next is Brittany Gordine, who I did some extensive work with last year, as you know. I just am doing this because I want you all to know each other. And Ashtara Wren, who I have found on YouTube. She's across the world right now, but I've definitely had just major understandings once hooking up with her particular, or if you get to see this, I'd love it if you see it. Because I feel like I have messages for you guys, or you ladies, human, whatever, mermaids, fawns, dragons. This is actually really a more of a Skyfire thing that's coming through, or actually proto-Skyfire, which I've realized is Thevina, which is a part of myself that I've had since I was 16. I didn't realize, but that part is actually much older. And I'm glad to have recognition of that. This is all going to be very woo. Someone by chance does not have any idea that I'm part of this is a spiritual awakening thing that I am recording right now, which is a lot of the downloads I've been getting, mostly to do with panpsychism and actually proto-panpsychism. That is the camp I am happily finding myself in, which is that we are conscious because the universe is conscious and it does not break physics. In fact, it helps physics because physics only explains what things do. It doesn't explain why. It does a great job of predictive behavior. And what it does, and I guess, okay, well, I wasn't done. Well, Ashtara. So the four of you this is really for you. Thank you all so much for opening yourselves up to me and putting your amazing energy in my path that I can now start to give back in my own way, which seems to right now just be video and words because that's what I got. But so how it doesn't break physics. I'm just going to read all this because this came to me all this morning. Was that the gift is in the giving. Energy going outward and expansion, which is the exact same thing our universe is doing, right? It's expanding at an ever accelerating rate. So we are reflecting our own universe at the very basest of basic levels. And our universe is awake and self-aware because we're looking at it. Now this is, as you all may not just be as much into the whole quantum physics things as I am, but that's the double slit experiment come to life, which actually the double slit experiment, if you look at it this way, it's a theory, but this is the theory that I'm realizing totally makes sense to me, is that it's the way, or the double slit come to consciousness. So in proto-consciousness, so that's the universe is omniverse, kind of the both and. So in proto-consciousness, or at the so pre-consciousness is, and I'm doing this because that's the wave function, right? What we understand quantum waves or particles at their base is that it's in a wave function, right? It's not solid. And then when we look at it, it stops. That's what physics says. It freaks a lot of physics folks out. I don't really know why. It's like, well, you don't need to be weirded out by a fact, but it seems to cause problems. But I think that's the same for the universe. So before there's even there's the concept of consciousness, and that's proto-consciousness, and that's really is what's the wave function at the base level of our universe. And then once we have come to this point, our species has evolved our own consciousness that we can tell that the universe knows when we're looking at it, right? We can do experiments and we can say, oh, look, these things change when we look at it. So the universe and we are self-aware. So we've basically, because of the science and where we've progressed now, we have stopped the wave function of the universe in which we find ourselves. It can only be one way, and it's the way in which we see it. right? Because that's what physics tells us. It predicts that if we look at a wave function, it stops. So as we are looking at the universe, we are in the one that with the crazy, the math that has to be precisely right. So otherwise it would be a universe of hydrogen, and that's it. Well, that's what we see because it stopped the only place it could, which is that we are self-aware, right? So we're conscious because at the particle quark level, proto-consciousness must be basically the inherent quality to existence is consciousness. And then at the macro level, right, macro and universal level, that's the only way it adds up. This is all very physicsy, but so what we see must be real because of all the math and physics are perfectly established for us to exist at all. So the only way that wave function could settle is the one in which there's a universe that we can live to look at it. It really is. It is kind of, I guess, an exceptionalism or whatever, but Occam's razor, which is definitely built into our physics, says it's always the simplest thing. So proto-panpsychism doesn't say that we aren't living in a matrix and that everything is actually not real. On the other hand, Occam's razor is built into our physics. It says it's the easiest thing. So if you look around, that's probably what's real. Close enough for jazz. For the universe, that's close enough for jazz. So physics predicts that we exist here. It did a great job because we exist, or we're in the matrix. But Occam's razor says, light travels, it's just the shortest, right? Everything goes to the most efficient way. And if the most efficient way is that we look around and say, yeah, okay, and at the base level, there are these elements, it's probably consciousness. Why? Because we appear to be conscious. It could be something way spookier, like a matrix setup, but the base components to our universe don't go that way. They don't go towards complexity. They go to the simplest common denominator, right? So that means that we can trust this because our universe tells us that's the logical thing to do. Our physics predicts that this is actually real. But that's only one part of it, right? Because the physics doesn't tell us why it's the way it is. So really, the ultimate hard question for, philosophers, physics, or we could just call it whatever they used to call it in the 1800s, philosophy, it is the ultimate hard question is to figure out why. What are we meant to do with this? And so I was like, let's do this. Let's tackle that hard question. And I feel like I've mentioned this to all of you now, but this idea of it came to me as seraphic math, so seraphim math. But basically it's like angelic math, and by angelic I just mean kind of like quantum math, but a math that is basically or interdimensional math. So, but seraphic math sounds pretty. So I got that message around the time that I was really recognizing the seraphic qualities in myself, which again, these are words. They are 3D words. I'm not saying I'm an angel in something that I don't know, but wings metaphorically just mean you're flying, right? So you're great. It doesn't have to, it's both and, I harp on this all the time because it's physics. Everything is both and all the time. We are in the now all the time. But within that infinite possibilities, they're only the ones that we can actually, as ourselves, corporeally and with soul or consciousness, the ability to know I exist, that I am, is... Oh, I just lost my train of thought, sorry. It's kind of some of those paths are a bit convoluted, but in the universe, oh, right, let me see if I'll find my notes. All right, I'm just going to start reading some of this stuff out loud. Okay, so our universe is the conscious embodiment of I am. So if the weights of any of the prime or base forces were different, this would be a universe of hydrogen, but they are exactly together. So at some point, kind of physics tells us our universe is self-aware. And what I'm realizing is that we are all at the macro level. So then we are living embodiments of essence of consciousness. So we are living embodiments of I am, which is kind of biblical and kind of probably a lot of religions, but really it's the essence that the very universe in which we live is alive in a sense, but not alive, but conscious, aware. And that it goes from it comes up from the most basic elements of the universe, so quarks, particles, or whatever's below that. And it's a separate data point. It isn't held within physics, because physics is the predictive part. This is the why part. We know it exists, or again, okay, if we're not doing the matrix part and we're not doing brain zombies, but within proto-panpsychism, that consciousness is at the basic level, and what we see is what we get, that there is, to a degree, a level of consciousness at every level within everything within the universe. Now, the more complicated it gets, like us, then we get to be aware of a whole lot more than some other things that don't have as much, like a hydrogen atom or a rock. But rocks would have consciousness too, and plants. Anyway, everything does, but not to the same degree. It's not like you have conscious and unconscious and it's black and white, because of course it's a wave function. It's both and all the time, but within that are definitely levels. So what else? Right, so consciousness is only possible in the universe in which we find ourselves. So some notes that I took this morning was when you take care of yourself, you are tending to the universe. And that my dharma seems to be that when I am through the looking glass, or actually in the looking glass, so in that interstitial kind of forever now continuous creation that is the be here now, so that really when you recognize just how that you're tuning into that liminal interstitial space, that's kind of like maybe, for lack of words, Figrid is something that Ashtara uses a lot, or like angelic. It's kind of a supra-human state, so it's really plugging into the supra-human level of consciousness and self-awareness, I suppose. Yeah. So that it's like beyond psychosis and kind of what is the 3D reality, that we can go, oh yeah, there is that, and it is very real to a degree, but the bigger why is beyond and underneath it. Like this is just, the 3D is one sliver of that, or one onion peel, and we're in an infinite onion, right? And then, so something else I'd known, or I got, was that my mathematical resonance is to prime 11, which also means that for 11/22, well, at least on our current calendar, so November of 2022 will be very powerful for me, but I think it's going to be not a Saturn return for me, but a Neptune return. That's what I've been getting from Ashtara, is about Neptune. So there's something that I'm really excited that will be happening next year, November 22, that will organically bring some new power, and it will do with that resonance of the prime 11. And so another thing of that I tend to keep, that I hold a sphere of energy, kind of like a glass ball, like when you see those in, anyway, that I'm holding a sphere of energy around me, and that I want to keep remembering that future that I want to be in. So I'm like remembering the timeline that I want to go to, in like a teleological, it's all happening at the same time, like remembering the future, kind of like really wanting to attune to those entangled particles of the universe that I want to be helping to create. That's super woo, but it's still kind of what our physics says. So, because it's perceptions, right? We only ever have the perception of the reality in which we find ourselves. But I do believe, and I've gotten this message a lot, is that the more of us who can really be plugged into that and see that and plug into each other, is that we can, well, basically increase the power of that resonance to bring in that reality, because it will bring more people to resonate to that same thing. And since we all know it's energy, I mean, electric, we literally sing the body electric. Our hearts have electrical waves. We run on electricity. So the idea of plugging into something as a group collective is not that woo, really. Um, so I don't know where I was going with that, but I just felt like, oh, right, if enough of us are doing this, that we really can become, we can be changing that resonance within, around the whole planet, and hopefully, like, help ourselves to not destroy ourselves as a species. I'd really like to think that we can get beyond money and beyond, uh, well, just, I guess, being miserly, that we as a species stop going, we choose to go from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance. That the more we have a universe to draw on, we have a universe to draw on. So the more we give, the more we have to give. We don't need to just bind it up into ourselves as though once it's gone, we can't have it and we just need to hoard everything. That is the opposite of what physics tells us. And maybe more of us, as we can kind of get that out into the zeitgeist, we can begin talking to each other and making some planetary changes. That's my hope. And I guess kind of one of the last things, I've been doing this kind of, it's like, I don't know. I know I'm not actually, I liked the TV show, The Magicians, where they can all do things with their hands, and also the original Angel, the OA series. But I've been finding myself kind of doing this. It's not a Reiki, or maybe it is. Anyway. But let's see. Oh, I believe that part of my, I'm part of the people tending to the sort of the universal story of humanity, and part of the gifts I have are to be able to dip into the big soup of story and plot and words and communication. That's something that very 3D, that I'm been given that gift, and so I'm just going to start sharing it, and that's what's going to be happening. But also on the more sort of galactic medicine side is that I've realized that especially the Skyfire, that kind of dragon-ish tending, that's right, I was thinking I was tending in a garden of consciousness, like on that level, that of just being that by tending to myself, I am tending to this great universal story of being aware, being awake, being alive and conscious. And I'd love for us to start finding out why, versus like, hey, we can predict that it's here. And like, yeah, it's here. Good on that. Where physics is really solid on that we are here. Now let's figure out why. And I want to be on the part of Team Y for humanity, I guess. So that's all I'm going to say here. That's almost 20 minutes. For anybody who might stumble across this, I am not not an energy worker. I am just a thinker. I'm kind of I feel like a living lighthouse, that I have a lot of ideas and concepts of how there's thoughts and concepts, and we are all, once you're awake, I am a multidimensional, multifaceted entity that is one facet of an infinite diamond of the universe. And I have a lot of creative paths that manifests for me, including energies that have words attached to it, like dragon and faun and seraphim and dryad and holy water well and creatures that don't have names and mermaids and goodness knows. And it's all just a creative soup of being. And I love this. I'm not going to be selling anything. I don't sell my time. I don't really read stuff. I'm just on my own journey, and I'm putting it all out there in the hopes that the energy of it and the energy of the words as they hit whoever it's meant to come to, but then you'll find me and we will dialogue, and we can help bring some other people to the table to bring an amazing universe into being. All right, bye.